the benefit of the second chamber. If you look at the experience of the Council of State over the years under the 1992 Constitution, you realize that it is essentially designed to be an advisory body. An advisory body in the sense that the president is required to, for example, make certain appointments on the advice or in consultation with the Council of State. But we know in practice that over the years, because of the nature of appointments by the president to the Council of State, it is very difficult for the Council of State to have the courage and the power and even the authority, because you can have power without authority. The power is there, but it's not backed by authority for various reasons. And so I think very respectfully, the Council of State itself over the years has been constrained in terms of being able to provide the type of advice that puts the executive on its toes, particularly the president. So what we are proposing is that as it exists now, the real benefit is marginal. So let us move into a new architecture where we have a second chamber that is clothed with real power and also with authority. So our proposals under the second chamber, for example, requires nominations to the position of chairpersons or heads of independent constitutional bodies, electoral commission, all these auditor general, very important positions, to be made, the nomination to be made by the second chamber, not by the president. It's a very important difference, because if the electoral commissioner is not appointed by the president, of course, then there's a limit to which directly or indirectly the president can control whether the electoral commissioner. So all these independent constitutional bodies, in my very humble opinion, are constrained in their effectiveness and efficiency because of the structure of appointments. We are converting that into a second chamber. But then you ask, so how do you guarantee in the second chamber? Because then representation not from the political parties, from all the stakeholders, the academia, civil society, the business community, the labor unions. So they are now going to make the nominations, and it is going to be very difficult to influence the entire second chamber. And it goes beyond just the appointments. There were so many, I would say, responsibilities bestowed on the Council of State. And my view is that unfortunately, we can't blame them. They are very honorable people on the Council of State. It is the nature of the Constitution that limits the capacity to effect change. Once we transform it into a second chamber, it's not actually transforming it. We are creating a second chamber, clothed with the power to, I would say, appoint heads of these ICBs, and then limit the power of them. Because we are talking about the professors of political science. When we talk about checks and balances, there ought to be elements within our political architecture that reinforces checks and balances. We are not talking about checks and balances in theory. It's not going to happen. So these provisions and proposals, we believe, will better streamline and reinforce this whole element of checks and balances. Number two was with how are you going to constitute your government without this? It is very simple. I'm surprised this has become a controversial issue. The Constitution currently mandates or requires the president to appoint at least 50% of ministers from parliament. What I have indicated is that the movement is established to promote a government of national unity with an independent presidential candidate. And so that constitutional requirement of appointing MPs is very simple. You go into parliament, you have NDC, you have MPP, you have CPP, you have independent candidates. The independent candidate who is president now can appoint that 50% from any of the, the people who are represented on the basis of their merit. You are there as a member of parliament, that when the president is appointing you, is on the basis of your own merit. So it's the easiest thing to do. And you are not constrained. It means you can bring the best. The person is an MP from MPP or from NDC, and they can do the job. Why not? And it also means that those who are there as independent MPs would also qualify. This is the best way to harness the talents of those MPs who can actually get the job done. It's not job for the boys. So when somebody is inquiring about this, how is he going to appoint his MPs? 50% they are done based on meritocracy. And then the other 50%, you have the benefit because it's a government of nationality. It means that everybody else can be part of it. But what even makes it interesting is that I have committed that I will reduce the size of government to 40 ministers. So all this talk about ministers, 50% of 40 is what? 20. Is that not it? 50% of my 40 is only 20. Meaning that it's only 20 for parliament out of 270. It's not a big deal. I know the way Ghanaians put negativity on everything. So when how is he going to get married? You are in parliament, and an independent president says that it doesn't matter whether you are NDC. I'm going to make you minister for finance. You say I don't want. Then if you don't want, why are you in parliament? Are you there to secure the interests of Ghana, or are you there to secure the interests of the party? It will not even arise. All of them in parliament are there because they want to be legislators at the back of it, or they want to get into the executive. So it is not a problem at all. At any rate, it's only 20. The icing on the cake is that if you look at my constitutional reforms, the proposals, I'm even proposing that part of the reform should be that we should change that constitutional provision, which limits the president to appoint 50%. So that itself will go away after some time. Number 3 is corruption. And it shows that you actually have read your team. Because the first point in dealing with corruption that I propose is our leadership by example. So he's trying to find out. So how are you going to mainstream this for it to have an impact on how we deal with corruption? Is that not it? Yes. That's what you call leadership by example. Because people watch you. Oh, this man, is it possible that if I am doing something, you would not? In my case, I've said it. You know me. There is no room that's around me for that. So if because of that you are skeptical as to whether, and it means that you also you want power only so that you can become corrupt. So I've made it clear I've never been corrupt. Everybody knows it. I'm not corrupt, and I'll never be corrupt. So I've set the standard in terms of leadership. And basically, it is not just because I am saying I'll lead by example. People around me, they have to lead by that example. But it also goes beyond that. It's because as a leader, you are setting the example not as a person, but you are using that to drive institutional change, legislative change, citizens' advocacy, all the proposals that I've made is because as a leader, I believe that this is the way to fight. So now how you mainstream it from a leadership point of view. Number four, public sector reform. You made a very important point that we say we are going to list the, even the Bible SOEs on VMPC, VRA. Why should government own 100% of that when you don't even have the money to capitalize? And as soon as you list it on the stock exchange, you find the amount of money that will come into these SOEs. So I'm saying that government will retain strategic shareholding interest, only strategic shareholding interest in the SOEs. But then the rest of it you offload it. So other Ghanaians can buy into it. Ordinary Ghanaians can actually buy shares into this state-owned enterprise. Your worry then was that how will then one of you were referring to? And very simple. In fact, this is the only way that you can actually improve the economy. Because right now the SOEs are a drain. Nobody controls them. They do what they like. Even though there's an oversight committee like SIGA now, but there's a limit to oversight, you know. So and for those SOEs that are not viable, that is the more reason why they should be sold off. I don't know whether I've answered the question here. Then the next issue was enterprise economy. Now, if you read the GDP, there are four main characteristics of the GDP. Private enterprise, promoting entrepreneurship, promoting innovation, and then reducing government regulation and control. Those are the characteristics of an enterprise economy. And the whole world, the most matured economies are all enterprise economies. It means that it is dominated by private sector. That's what the enterprise economy. So if you talk about 24-hour economy, what does that mean? But when you talk about the enterprise economy, you're talking that your business model is that your economy will be driven by private sector, by private aid. So whether it is infrastructure development or social services, it is clear. It's all private enterprise. If it's private enterprise, government does not need to borrow. And that is exactly what this enterprise economy is about. And number six, eliminating political interference. And that is why we have had all these different clusters. Because if you are running an enterprise economy and it's driven by the private sector, how are you going to influence? How you understand me? It is because it is heavily driven by the public sector. That is why you want favor. You know, somebody has gone to borrow his money, he's doing his private business. You can go and instruct him. So you actually limit. So enterprise economy is the key because it will limit even the political interference. If you go to the United States, I mean, the best example of an enterprise economy, government does not have any control on in terms of interference. So that is the way we look at it. And then incentives for patriotism. Incentives for patriotism. That's if you read the GTP, the section on the mindset change, you find that there has to be incentives and rewards for patriotic citizens. And basically the whole element of meritocracy and doing things as a Ghanaian. And when you talk about promoting made in Ghana goods, if government is supporting made in Ghana goods, it's all part of having a patriotic attitude and approach so that people will buy made in Ghana goods. There are incentives for that. And then last but not the least, family execution of responsibility. Is that correct? Yes. And it is all tied to the fact that in the private sector, you cannot do what you want. Those of us who were trained in the private sector, I started my career with UAC at that time as deliver an higher subsidy. The issue of execution of responsibilities is an inbuilt mindset. There is no way that you cannot live by time. So as we try to implement an enterprise economy, you'll find that execution, timely execution of responsibilities, all becomes part of the very nature of what we do. If it is public sector, so time is not of the essence. You know. So it is a very nature of the business model that I believe will help us with timely execution. And then also, it depends on your incentives. Your compensation is based on how you execute your responsibilities. If you don't work, you'll be sacked. So it's all part of the architecture for an enterprise. Thank you.